why I asked everyone to get into pairs is because we're going to think, pair, share. So if everyone can open up the workbooks to page 5, you'll see we've got a fantastic acronym, KWL. And I hear you think, what does that stand for? So if you look at that page, it will tell you, K is for what I know, W is for what I want to know, and people will share with the group what.
Sorry, I don't know what's doing that. It's too close to that. Okay, sorry.
So the last thing is that we'll share with the group what your partner wants to learn from today. So if you'd like to go ahead and think about what you already know about those 4 concepts, write that down, and then in about a minute and a half I'll let you know to start chatting to the person next to you.
Do you have a chance to display all 4 tasks that you want us to write down?
I would just write down what you can,
Yeah.
and we're just
What was
going
that? What was that?
a few people to
That's-
present it at the end.
The number was
So that's eLearning,
development, learning, project presentations.
Anything that you know about.
Sorry.
And design thinking.
So just for everyone, that is all on your workbooks, everything I said, so your KWL chart, and under that, the 4 topics. And what we're working on is what I know and what I want to learn.
Okay,
And I'll
should be able to use the microphone now. That should work.
And at the end of the day, we'll share what I've learned, I'd imagine, at some point. We're a bit tight for time. I only got about 5 minutes left, so I might get you to start sharing with the person next to you. Yes. What you know and what you want to learn. So you have about 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yep.
That's 5.
Yeah, sorry. Things change. Ever-changing world.
Who's the easy person?
Okay, here we go. All right, first up. So, impromptu, I've just put down my experience. Sorry? Oh, yeah. All random.
Well, that's why I'm not there.
So, that is what I want to learn. So, my experience was just like very much had topics. So, those masters at the impromptu, I think that's what I actually read for a second.
Yeah.
Well, because I don't know what you want to do, what it means, I put it in there, I learn to see myself because because we've obviously
so that's why I have everyone use the subscription because that way people will share work and we'll find stuff.
But he's still doing it. Oh, okay.
So there's some really good conversations happening at the moment. I'd like a couple of people. Hello, everyone. Some good conversations going. So it'd be great if we could just get one or two people to stand up and share what their partner told them. So Kerry, I heard you and Christine talking. So would you like to share with the group what? Chris, do you mind coming up and using the mic? So we've got about 1 minute left.
Okay, so seeing as how I never got a turn to share and there's nobody listening to me, hello people. Hello. Kerry and I have had a very quick chat. I know that Kerry is sort of very open to what's going to happen and what she can learn. At this point, she's not even familiar with what platforms are appropriate for what outcomes. So she's open and looking forward to learning and seeing where it might all take her.
Thank you, Christine. Come in. Elke, would you like to share what your partner offered?
Yes, Paul and I talked about the larger student audience reach that e-learning has as opposed to face-to-face learning, how it can be more specifically targeted to the needs of the students, and how it's a better designed and effective version of perhaps distance learning.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the end of this session. I'll hand back to Kathleen. Thank you.
Okay, that's a little bit loud. How's that? That's a bit better. Okay, you can hear me, but I'm not going to be too loud for you. All right. We all know that in order to design training effectively, we need to determine what the outcomes are for the training. Yep, great. I'm seeing some nods. And we also need to know what our learners are looking for from the training session. So in order to discover this, a survey was put together a few months ago by a team in this club. That survey has been released to the general Toastmasters populace, and to report back on the findings of that, we have Amelia, who's also going to lead you through the design of the learning outcomes for what we're going to be producing today. So please make her feel welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Actually, can someone else just sit here and flick the slides?
Hi everyone, looking forward to this learning outcome session. It can be quite confusing, but I'm trying to keep it simple for you. You could spend hours trying to come up with the perfect learning outcome. So we're going to do it in a few minutes. Yes? Say yes. So you need to turn to page 6 and page 7 in the document that you have in front of you. That's what we'll be referring to throughout this session. And I just would like to flick to the next slide. So I just want you to be very aware of the expectations throughout this session. I'm going to be sharing the results of the TNA, the Training Needs Analysis, which is really all about getting to know and understanding who we're developing these learning outcomes for. It's really just to get an understanding of where they're at and where we need to go with them. And in this case, it's the potential speechcraft coordinators for Toastmaster clubs. And learning outcomes, we'll be coming up with 3 course learning outcomes overall. We will be working together in pairs and we'll be coming up with, I guess, learning. I want you to come up with 2 learning objectives per pair. This is in a 10-minute time frame. And then I want one person from that pair to report back. We're going to be writing down those top 10 or 12 learning outcomes. We're going to narrow it down to 1, and then we have to choose 3, the top 3. We need to come up with the top 3 from this group that we're going to be working on today. So is everyone very clear on how we're going to be running this session? Yep, let's go. Next slide, please. And the next slide. It's hard when you don't have a clicker. I haven't sort of worked out a way to do that. So as Kathleen mentioned, the survey was distributed to all D70 and D90 club officers Who actually saw that survey? Did anyone fill it out, complete it? Yep. You're one of the 26 who responded. Isn't that interesting in itself? The survey was also posted on Facebook twice to D70 and D90 Facebook pages, and the overall response, so the overall reach was 1,350 people, 1,350, and we got 26 responses. So interesting just to think about that for a minute in itself. Next slide, please. And the key takeaways from this training needs analysis, we'll go through it very briefly. We've only got a few minutes to touch on the results. 10 questions were put together in SurveyMonkey. I'm sure you've all heard of SurveyMonkey, yes, and probably experienced it. Some of you would have experienced it with this survey. Most of the questions were answered. A few were skipped over, but most were answered. So that's a good sign that the questions were easy enough to answer. The majority of respondents, though, had already run a Speechcraft course. So that's another interesting fact, an interesting takeaway. So the people that we're targeting, keep this in mind, are really people who haven't run a Speechcraft course. So predominantly the people who responded to the survey had run a Speechcraft course. So it's another interesting fact to think about. One of the other takeaways that I got from the results of the survey was time. People only have like an hour a week to dedicate to preparing, planning, developing their Speechcraft course. So time is clearly an issue. And yeah, they need more people to actually coordinate the courses along with time and along with training to feel confident to actually run the courses. Next slide, please. So this was a survey. I'm just going to run through it very briefly just so you can visualize the results. So it was entitled How to Run a Speechcraft Course, Support for Toastmaster Clubs. Yeah. And total 26 responses. Next slide. This is the first question. Have you or anyone in your Toastmasters group ever run a Speechcraft? So obviously the people who predominantly answered this question had, yes. Next slide, please. And next slide. Question 2 is, how confident are you that your club can successfully run a Speechcraft course? So look, most people were pretty confident that their clubs could run it, but there are a few, it kind of dropped off a little bit. But obviously the people, you know, think about the people who are responding to this training needs analysis, they'd all run a course. So of course they're going to think, yeah, I can run a course. Next slide. Next question, how many experienced members are there in your club who could run a Speechcraft course? So yeah, predominantly 3 to 4 experienced members can run a Speechcraft course in the respondents that answered that survey. Next question. If your club runs a Speechcraft course, how likely would it be to help? So that was quite mixed. You can run through those answers. So look, obviously, you know, the purpose for running a Speechcraft course. Next question. Yeah, just go back one if you can. Yeah, based on your knowledge and current available resources, how confident are you to coordinate the following aspects of a Speechcraft course? So once again, quite a varied and mixed response. Next question was, please select the resource you most need to successfully craft your own Speechcraft course. So once again, this is where more people were required. A little bit of training. This is what I summarized in that front slide. Obviously, you know, online resources, so that's linked in with training. And then other. Actually, other was interesting. Yeah, just click to the next slide. Okay. Oh, they are in your handouts that will be coming. Question 7. So there's a varied response in regards to other. It'll be interesting for you to have a read of that when we're developing the outcomes. Question 7, how much time can you dedicate each week to planning and developing your Speechcraft course? So that's where the hour, people have only got an hour. So time limits there. Next slide. And out of that time, which would you prefer? So just what resources would they like to have? And you can't actually read that. You can read it in your handout, but it's access to online training essentially. So perfect, because we're actually going to be developing for that for them today. Next question, and this is the final question. Next slide. I don't know what happened to question 10. Okay, so and then just there was the final question was other, so and it will all be in your handout. It's just other areas that we can assist them. So it'll be interesting for you to read that when you're developing. So a learning outcome. Let's get to the nitty gritty. That's what it is all about. But who feels confident writing learning outcomes? We've touched on it. There might be varying degrees of people. Has anyone not written a learning outcome before? Everyone else is familiar with the term. And who has only, I guess, learning outcomes, have you only done it here or do you do it in the workplace as well? So hands up for here and in the workplace. Okay, so we've got quite a broad base with which to work from. But at the end of the day, just you're going to knock it out of the ballpark, be confident, it'll be fine. Next slide. So when it comes to writing learning outcomes, the key things are they need to be observable. So what do I mean by observable? It just means to be able to do it. Needs to be specific. Don't use PR, speak and language. Don't do all the fluffy, gorgeous language that I tend to hop into all the time. Keep it really short. Use simple language. Don't use acronyms. Don't use things that people don't know anything about. We don't want people to be guessing and not understanding what they're meant to be learning. Keep it simple. Include at least one action verb in your booklets. You've got a whole list of them. That's going to be your Bible. Does it fit in with the overall program objective? So underneath your verb list, there's a yellow section that is the program outcomes. So not to get confused, program outcomes are different to the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes support the program outcomes. The program outcomes are the big picture. The learning outcomes are how we're going to achieve that overall big picture. So we have 3 areas which you need to tie your learning outcomes to when you come to writing them down. Next slide. Actually, can you just go back? We're just going to quickly do a little task just to get us underway. So learning outcomes, there is a specific formula. You've got behaviour and concept or skill equals learning outcome. So we have some examples here for you listed. And what I really want you to focus on is how is the learning outcome, the key component is that it needs to be observable. So people need to be seen to be able to demonstrate that they have learnt what you're trying to teach them. Is that clear for everyone? Say yes. So have a look at those 3. Now, what I want you to do is look for, there are unobservable verbs and there are observable verbs. Now, I want you to just have a quick go, like in a minute, see if you can find the unobservable verbs and the observable verbs in those 6 scenarios. Well, they're really 3 scenarios, but one on the left-hand side, possibly, there could be some unobservable verbs. And on the right-hand side, possibly observable. Anyway, I want you to see if you can pick out those verbs. And then we'll go through that. You can physically, that they are demonstrating that they have learnt or can carry out the task. Just a few more seconds. Okay, let's go through. Who found that task easy? Hands up. Oh, what a sensational class you guys are. All right, let's go through it. So the first unobservable verb, does anyone actually want to, to let me know what they think that was? Yes. So yes, that was actually the observable verb. And what do you think the unobservable verb was on the left-hand side? Yes. No. So how do you know that someone's learning? You can't see that, can you? But clearly, if they're demonstrating that they can do it, you can observe that and see it. In the next center column, so on the left-hand side, just remember they're the unobservable verbs, and on the right-hand side, they're the observable. Does anyone else want to have a go on the unobservable on the left for the second one? Yes? Yes. How do you know that someone's learnt something? They need to demonstrate it. That's a possible example, or they need to refer. Yeah. And the final one, who would like to have a go at that one? Correct. Absolutely. How do you know that someone understands? So yes. So does everyone understand that you really need to be able to demonstrate, it needs to be observable that you've learnt the task? Does everyone understand that? Excellent. We're doing well. It can be it's tricky. It's not easy. Okay, so the next step we're going to do, I'm going to pop you guys, well, have a quick read. We've got the program, just an example here as well. On the left-hand side, you've got the program outcomes. This is just another example. So we do have our program outcomes in the yellow box. There are specific ones, but just so you understand the comparison, just have a quick read of the program outcomes in this next little column at the bottom of page 6. And then you've got the equivalent learning outcomes. So you can actually see the difference between setting a program outcome and a learning outcome. So I just want you to have a quick read of that. So the right-hand column with the learning outcomes support the overall program outcomes. That is what we're trying to do in this session right now. Next. So when you've read that, I want you to hop into pairs. Just whoever's sitting closest to you, you might have to move. Someone may have to move. But we need to do this next task because now you're going to be coming up with the learning outcomes for the course we're going to be designing today. So you just need to grab a piece of paper. Hopefully you've all got a piece of paper. Do we have pads? No. Are they over here? No. Does everyone have a piece of paper? I've got a pad here if you need a piece of paper. Yep. Sorry? Yes, absolutely. That's what this e-learning, we're actually not designing, this is for helping people building the confidence to run a Speechcraft course. Absolutely. Does anyone else need paper to write down? No? Yep. So we're looking for two learning outcomes to support our overall program outcomes. So I want you to come up with 2 learning objectives to help people build their confidence in running a Speechcraft course. Does everyone understand what they need to be doing? No, that was just an example. So you can use that to refer back to. No. There are program outcomes in the yellow box. So you just need learning outcomes. So you've got your verb list. So remember the audience we're targeting.
It's basically about instead of a guru design where you rely on one person to spread the information, technology is still about democratizing education because it makes it accessible to the masses. That's what I mean.
How much time have I got left? Oh, it's 30, isn't it? Yeah, it's 30 minutes total though, yeah? $19 left. What?
Yeah, actually, I might give a question about 9 minutes.
What was 30? Can you just pop the next slide up? Just, yeah. I just want to point out, sorry to interrupt just for a moment. We've got probably 5 minutes to go or 4 minutes. But just up on the slide here, learning objectives are about changing behaviour. So there's just a little guide here for you as well. Try not to use those unobservable verbs. Commence until you feel confident. You can just use the learner will, and then you put your action word next. The learner will, blank, and then whatever you're trying to get them to demonstrate or whatever it might be. The actual skill that you're trying to get them to learn.
So can we just do one particular skill, like break it down, or does it have to be an overall?
No. Each learning objective. Sorry.
I was going to say, I recommend you look at the outline that's in your workbook. So look at what the course is covering, which is on the next page. Yeah, that one. Hold it up, Karen, so everyone can see. Yeah, have a look at that. So look at what the course is actually covering and try to speak to that. Sorry.
That's right.
Question, are we observing the learning outcomes after they do the e-learning course or after they run the speechcraft course? Okay, that will change the way you run.
Well, we're running an e-learning course so that they can run effective speechcraft courses. So I write it so that we can see whether or not they're actually practicing it when they run a speechcraft course.
So at what point do you observe?
That's for you to figure out.
Isn't the performance after the course the main criteria in terms of how you perform?
I would say so.
Yeah.
If you get it right,
Basically,
there's
to me,
question.
the performance is the review of performance. You can learn learn all you want to and you still can't perform. It's just like, when
Mm.
you attend university, doesn't mean you're going to be a millionaire.
So really, you're writing the learning objectives so we can have a successful outcome in running a speechcraft course. So what is going to assist those coordinators in each Toastmaster club to run a successful Toastmaster speechcraft course?
In terms of how successful you must be for the attended your course.
So write down a learning outcome that does that.
So we've just got a couple more minutes and then we'll get a spokesperson from each of your group and we're going to write down one learning objective from each group and then we have to select 3 overall. So refer back to, if you're getting stuck and you're not clear, refer back to that little table with the program outcomes at the bottom of page 6 with the learning outcomes on the right-hand side. So once again, don't be confused about the program outcomes versus the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes are what we're doing right now. So they're to help achieve the program outcome. And I guess at the end of the day, we tend to overcomplicate learning outcomes. Keep it simple. Just it's quite straightforward. Well, not straightforward, because you can spend hours on each learning outcome. But really, to take an example from the program outcome at the bottom of page 6, you've got staff will be able to demonstrate they know how to use each package. So this is in relation to software programs. A learning outcome for that is demonstrate that they're able to use 2 new software packages. It's as simple as that. Don't overcomplicate it. So we're working towards 3 learning outcomes to help us assist with our program outcomes. Just have a go. No answer is right or wrong at this point. Yeah, I've got till 1:45. Oh, 5 minutes early. Okay, let's have a go at getting these up on the board. Colleen's going to come and be my fabulous scriber. Don't trip. Yeah. Okay, so for our first group, who wants to volunteer? Spokesman from your, yes? So, yeah. They're varied.
Yeah, the 6 weeks of the speech craft course.
Yeah.
So take the Toastmasters material, demonstrate, create a course week to week to week. People participating in the speech craft course.
Yep. Are you right to write that one down, Colleen? And did you have another one, or that was, we're just selecting one from each group at this?
Demonstrate. Create cross-registration, whether it be online or through local newspapers, creating a cross-registration for speech craft course.
Mm-hmm. I think at this stage, yeah, the first one was, that's more specific and that's good. So let's run with that one. Yep. And next group. How about you guys at the front here? Did you, yeah?
Well, one of them is after finishing the course, the student would start preparing plans, budgets, and projection for actually running a course.
So produce.
Action, yeah.
The actions produce.
Plans to produce, take action, or to make plans, budgets to actually produce.
So to plan.
To plan,
Yeah.
the budget.
This budget is part of planning.
Yep.
Yeah.
And did you have another one at all, or that you wanted to share?
And then after planning is to seek agreement among the members of the club, because not just the student has to run on behalf of the club. So number 3 is actually to seek agreement to see if it is feasible for the club.
So did you want to, was it to propose?
Or yeah, let's say to propose.
Mm-hmm.
Propose actual running of the course. That's by using the course information, obviously, not just pull something from
Yeah. We'll think.
They'll use that information to propose actually run the course.
Is that a learning outcome? Is it, we can come back to the learning later. Okay. Let's just get some help on the board for now.
This table here. So let's go. Who would like to go first out of you guys? Do you have a spokesperson? Yep.
So from the training needs analysis, I saw that the 2 things I wanted to address were confidence and also in running the course and confidence in recruiting help to run the course, because they all identified that they wanted more people.
Mm-hmm.
So my first suggested outcome is after the course, the learner will demonstrate the ability to plan and prepare a speechcraft course. And
Just give her a second to keep up with that.
And the second one was after the course, a learner will apply what they have learned to confidently recruit speechcraft coordinators.
That's a big one, I think, in clubs, isn't it?
Sorry, can we say that again?
After the course, the learner will apply what they have learned to confidently recruit speechcraft course coordinators.
So recruit would be your, so to recruit, confidently recruit speechcraft coordinators. Excellent. Yes, Paul.
I've got a similar one, slightly different focus. So if one of the training needs analysis shows that people don't always have the necessary skills and they don't have enough experienced members, if you have a course that sort of fits everyone, it might not fit everyone. There might be a tweaking of the course for individuals. So how would you do that? Maybe at the very beginning there needs to be some sort of a understanding in the course for someone to design it specifically for them at whatever level they're at.
So how to tailor it.
Might be 12 units and they might already know two.
Mm-hmm.
So the objective would be that the learner will identify the skills and knowledge level and construct their own personal course structure.
Say that again.
The learner, there's 2 parts to it.
Mm.
The learner will identify the skill and knowledge level.
Yeah, let's just keep it to 1 for each learning objective. So, okay.
So that's like